Welcome aboard the Pilot Money Guys podcast, where our mission is to help professional pilots build and protect wealth on their journey to financial freedom. This podcast is brought to you by Leading Edge Financial Planning.
All right, welcome to the Pilot Money Guys. Today we have a special guest, and you all know and love already Mark, the face, has been known as the face Covell over time. Mark, I don't know if that's because you're so handsome. I don't know where that came from.
I don't know where the face came from, but I'm gonna officially retire it right now in this podcast.
Exactly. I respect that retiree nomination. But more importantly, Mark, we have your lovely, beautiful wife, Adriana, here. And that is the most important because she is our guest of honor today. And we can talk call signs later for Adriana if you'd like. But Adriana is a life coach, a health coach. And listen, let me get this correct. National Board Health and Wellness Coach, NBC-HWC. We love acronyms, Adriana, so we got to say that acronym. But, it's been interesting because on this podcast, I've always talked about health and nutrition, or my desire somehow to work that in our own practice, our wealth management practice. And so one of the things that we believe is your wealth is important, your money is important, but what good is it if you're not healthy? And what good is it if you don't feel good? And that applies to retirement and right now. And especially our pilot audience, and Mark, many of our listeners know you're an American Airlines captain, prior military guy as well, prior Marine. So you know that lifestyle, you know how difficult it is to maintain health while you're traveling and maintain nutrition. So again, Adriana is a nutritionist as well. So we're excited to have you join us today, Adriana. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. So, part of this is me and Mark were talking on our visit in Phoenix, and I was like, Mark, we've got to figure out a way to help our pilot audience, just get a handle on some nutritional principles, framework. And I was talking to you, Mark. I was like, it is so complicated and confusing. What are your thoughts, Mark?
I guess the conference, obviously we were focused on finance, but I think one of the authors that we both really like, Morgan Housel, I think he's distilled a concept that really resonated, I think, with both of us, that both our wealth and our health are two concepts that are ever present, whether we focus and pay attention to them and are good stewards of them or not. They're going to have profound impacts on our life. And I know I personally kind of focus on the wealth management side of our family. And Adriana here has taken the reins of really ensuring the healthy aspects of our family. So we've I think we're both trying to individually cover those two very important aspects of leading to a fulfilling life and making it sustainable. So
that's right. And we always talk about, how long we're going to live. Mark, you and I, you're one of our advisors, of course, but we're projecting or forecasting. All right, we're going to live to our early 90s, and some people kind of groan a little bit at the thought of that. Like, boy, sometimes we see examples of where those later years are not so pleasant. And we want not just longevity, but quality of life, during that longevity. So we're going to talk about those things today. I'm super excited, Adriana, to have you on here. And I kind of joked, that I'm going to just use this opportunity for me to learn about how to eat better and eat right and just get some principles and rules. But before we jump into that, can you share a little bit about, why did you get into this, the coaching, the nutrition? You've worked at a hospital before. Is there anything you could share with us about kind of how that became your career path?
Sure. I am originally from Brazil, and I ate healthy there, never had, weight issues. And I moved to the U.S. Over 20 years ago, and I gained a lot of weight. Like in months, and I started having thyroid problems, and I didn't understand. I was working out every day, and I was eating not that drastically different, but I, couldn't shed my weight. So I got really interested in understanding what was going on with my body, why it changes so much. and I was in my late 20s. So I did a lot of research. That's where I start to go into nutrition to understand what is in the food. Why is the food affecting my body so much? And then I found out all the hormones in the food here and all the process and the sugar and everything, artificial flavor and all of that, in Brazil, it was not, it is unfortunately nowadays, but back in the day, it was a lot of more fresh fruits and vegetables. My mom cooked every meal for us every single day. We rarely ate out. So, it was a shock for my body to eat so much processed food here in the US. And I gained a lot of weight because of that. So it took me a little bit of time to change my lifestyle, start learning more what are the best foods to eat and cooking my own food. And then I was able to lose the weight, be healthy again. And it's been 15 years. I never changed my weight, even after having my kid.
Nice. Yeah. And so we go back those 20 years, we could probably blame that on Mark, I'm sure, right? It's his fault, I'm sure. Right, Mark?
He was pretty bad when I met him, but now he's really healthy.
Excellent.
Too.
Yeah. So
I think then, when I start to get a career in nutrition, of course, to help myself, and that really had a positive impact in my health. So I felt that I wanted to help other people. And all my other Brazilian friends I met that they moved here, they all suffering from the same problem. They all gaining weight and they didn't know why. So that became a career. I started doing nutrition for years, working clinics. I was in San Diego at the time, worked with a lot of different doctors and helping them with their patients. Then I got to the point that I realized that information is important, but it's not everything. I was teaching my clients and patients to eat healthy, and a lot of them would not do it or do for a little bit and then go back to bad habits like, the diets that people cannot keep on. So then I start to understand that there is a lot more to being healthy than just what you eat, right? Our mindset is powerful. Well, our thoughts, our emotions, our sleep, our hydration, toxins, environment, your relationships, everything plays a role in a well-being. Mm-hmm. So then I start becoming a coach, because coach address the behavior side of it. Because a lot of people want to eat healthy, but they can't stop eating certain things, or they can't start eating certain things, and they're kind of addicted to certain foods. And then I need to understand their behavior. What is the driver behind that makes us stick to a plan or not, or prioritize our health or not? And then I see really immense long-term changes in clients and people around me.
Wow, that's got to be really rewarding to be able to peel back that onion, that layer, so to speak, of why is someone, let's use weight, let's use overweight in this example, although there's many other examples, and not everybody, should eat healthy to feel good, not just to lose weight. So, but sometimes when we're overweight, like you said, there are many, many other things going on there that are underlying, right?
Correct.
So, yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. I was talking to somebody the other day at the gym, and they had, I think they lost 100 pounds or more, maybe 150 pounds. And it was interesting because they described this journey of losing the weight, which was fascinating and, amazing and inspiring. But they said the real, I forget how they phrased it, but there took a lot of emotional dysfunction to get from a normal weight to almost 250, 275 pounds. And this person was small, that was a too much weight for them. But there was a lot of emotional, difficulties that led to that in the first place. And then, reversing that is a whole nother journey as well. So it's just fascinating. So.
Yeah, I actually specialize in weight loss for many years. Because of my personal experience too. And I'll tell you, I haven't met an overweight woman who hasn't had trauma right before they start eating their emotions away. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely related. We attach emotions to food, and this is a way of escape, which is easy. It's available, it's accepted. I work at a hospital, so every time everybody bring donuts and cookies every day. And in my department, I stopped that. I was like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to have the nuts and the fruits and the things that are important, because more do you eat, more do you want. And for them, it's like appreciation of a donut is appreciation. No, it's not, right? Yeah. It's the meaning, is the intention of saying thank you. So we put meaning into food, right? If I grew up eating certain foods, that means something to me. And if I'm feeling something uncomfortable, I'll go to something. I go to food first, and you can go to alcohol, drugs, shopping. There is a lot of escape mechanisms that we use when we're having uncomfortable feelings. But food is a big one that is, like I said, is everywhere. And, we're surrounded by, and it's just easy. We don't realize everything in a subconscious level that we eating, we feel good with our chocolate, and then a little later we feel guilty about it, and then we eat more to feel a little better, and that never stops. So that's the reason why for coaching, I need to address the behavior behind why we eat certain foods. What is the meaning that I put in that food? And then when I work that, change the belief system, change their thought process, the way that they see their body, the way that they see diet, and food. Once you change that, then they can start eating healthy. But until you don't address that, it's going to be the yo-yo diet that most people know. They start and you go back to bad habits.
Yeah. And Mark, if you got something, jump in anytime, by the way. But I love there's, and I've got a list of questions, by the way, Adriana, that are, I think, at least I want to know about. So we'll get to those in a minute. But there are two things there that I heard you say that I think resonate with me. One of those is when people were bringing donuts to your office, you said, no, we're not going to do that. And to me, that's a structure. You put a structure in place to set people up for success. And I've seen studies. In fact, it was in Atomic Habits where they talked about the Vietnam soldiers in Vietnam were addicted to heroin. And so I know this is an extreme example, but they came back to the U.S. and simply because their environment, the structure around them was completely different, at record levels, they were able to come off of those drugs. And so I think that is so important that for us, and I think, my family, I know it starts at the grocery store, because I know if there's a bag of chips in the pantry, I'm going to eat it. There's just there's no way around that. Yeah. But the other part I heard you say, which I think about, we still have young kids in the house. And so sometimes it's tempting to go, hey, you did really great. Let's go get an ice cream. And I kind of think in my mind, well, maybe I should say you did great. Let's go get some broccoli, but that doesn't have the same effect. That doesn't have the same effect. Maybe there's an in between there. What do you think about that, Adriana?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's association, right? Yeah. And I had the stories of my clients too saying, "Oh, my grandma, I didn't have a mom or something, and my grandma always brought me to have ice cream. So this person is addicted to ice cream. Every time she eats ice cream, her little child inside her goes back to like, I'm loved. Someone cared for me." Right? It's all on a subconscious level. You don't know why you need to eat the whole pint of ice cream and you feel better. Because it's not the food itself. It's your memory as a child. So, we all make mistakes with child and it's totally fine. But I think it's important to not associate reward with food. Yeah. Because they get wired in their brain. And then when they get older, that can be something that's a subconscious level that like, oh, I feel good every time I eat ice cream. Yeah. So it's just to bring to conscience for us as adults that like, yeah, food is fuel. It's the same thing. Your car, you're going to put gasoline, right? You're not going to put like banana there and then some dirt. And, it's not going to work properly. So for us, of course, human beings are a lot more complex than cars, but just try to change our vision to food is fuel for my body instead of being a pleasure, a feel good or reward or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. In that scenario, that example, like I associate, because I probably do. I probably associate ice cream.
We all do. Me too.
It was just good times, movies, whatever. So how do you disassociate those feelings? To me, it just seems like, okay, I've got to brute force for 90 days away from that habit. We talked a little bit about moderation. We don't need to kill ourselves over a bowl of ice cream, whatever. But are there tips or experiences you've had where you've been able to disassociate those extreme emotions? Again, using the ice cream example, and the grandmother took me to ice cream when I was a kid. What do you do? What does somebody do? Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So there are a couple of things. One is bringing what is in your subconscious mind to your conscious mind, right? Things that are aware. This person will eat every time. I didn't know why, and it was just addicted to it. And then when we start to realize what was behind all of that, It's like, wow, yeah, every time I was sad, that brought me happiness. But the happiness doesn't come from the ice cream, can come from healthy habits. What other things makes you happy? A lot of my clients make a list of feel good activities, and it's different for each person, going for a long walk, spending time with your pet or your family member, calling a best friend, taking a long bath, reading a good book, doing meditation and listen to good music or dance. There is a lot of good things that you can do to get out of the funk or kind of feel better, bring yourself happiness and comfort or safety instead of the ice cream. First, you bring to awareness. Once you're aware is half of the work. You're aware of things like, wow, even if you ate the ice cream, oh, wow, I totally realized I had a terrible day and I just did the whole thing. Send yourself compassion, be gentle and kind to yourself. This is not about blame. It's not about guilt, and then how can I move forward? How can the next time you stop yourself before when you open the freezer and like, oh, how am I feeling? Oh, I had a terrible day. I'm feeling, lonely. I'm feeling frustrated. What can I do instead? Go do something else. And then you rewire your brain to do other habits. Go look for other things that makes you feel good, but in a conscious level. So you choose to do other things and you're not living in your subconscious mind that created that habit or going to the ice cream.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And another thing is not depriving yourself of anything. To me, I did a lot of diet with a lot of my clients, and depriving yourself is the worst thing because then you feel you don't deserve, poor me, I don't like myself. So you just replace everything. What do I do for my kid? We do a lot of smoothies and I freeze them. That's ice cream. You get a bunch of frozen fruit, get frozen banana, put peanut butter, almond butter, put in a freezer. That's a creamy, yummy ice cream, which is a lot healthier than if you buy the one at the store that has tons of processed sugar and lots of coloring and, just not even natural food in there. So you replace, I teach a lot of my clients to make healthy desserts, use dates instead of sugar. And it's still sweet. It's still going to fulfill your cravings, but you're eating a healthy dessert. Yeah. And that can totally get your brain to where it needs to be. You're just replacing.
Oh, that's
she
awesome.
Makes a chocolate mousse that's made out of tofu. And the first time she made it, she's like, try this. And I'm like, what's in it? She's like, just try it. And I ate it. I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. She's like, what's in it? And I'm like, I have no idea. And she's like, tofu. And I'm like, wow. Get out of here. But there's some thoughtful, creative ways of still having a treat, but it's actually not as bad for you as the alternatives. So.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. And I love that idea and I've heard that before, Adriana, and other like habit building or habit breaking, like cigarettes, again, another extreme example, but you have to replace that habit, right? With something. Correct. And I love what you said too, bring it to the surface, to the conscious level, just to talk about it. It's amazing how I think when we talk about our history, just bringing that to the conscious level, acknowledging it is really a powerful thing. And that's that first step you talked about.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. And being kind to yourselves, nobody does that anything in purpose or, especially people who gain weight, they're very hard on themselves, that they don't have the willpower to do things. No, it's not that. Just bring a lot of kindness to yourself that everything that happened was out of the unconscious level with survival mechanisms that we all use and do. And food is one of them. I use food, a lot of times. But it's just, when you bring to awareness, you can move forward in a different way. I always said that changing your mindset, Einstein said you can't solve a problem with the same mindset that created. So we need to change our mindset first, and then we're going to come from a different place to solve that problem. Mm-hmm. With the example of diet, I had a lot of women who came so defeated. They want to lose weight, but like, oh, I tried so many times. I tried that diet, and I always fail. So they come with that mindset, or I'm going to fail. So how, well prepared and motivated they're going to be to start a new diet? Not very. So I don't do diet with them in the beginning. I change their emotions, their associations, their mindset, whatever's coming from, the core of the motivation of eating or not eating, their, limiting beliefs, everything first. And then we go change where they eat.
Wow.
So they're coming from a different place, and then they're able to succeed.
Yeah. Well, that's phenomenal. It's amazing how, your combination of coaching, life coaching, health coaching, nutrition, and just really, again, gets to the core of the problem. Otherwise, it seems like if we don't do it that way, then the chances of success are probably a lot lower. Maybe to, I think probably safe to say that. But, well, that's phenomenal. And, I made a list of a few things, like I said, just top 10, if you will. But before I jump into that, one big overarching thing that you think about a lot, what might it be as far as nutrition? Or is there one thing that we all kind of go, we got to stop this, we got to get rid of X, whatever? Anything on your mind there as far as the biggest challenge that we all might face?
I think processed food is the number one, and toxins are two things that our world is full of now, that it wasn't like that before, that is overtaxing our bodies right now. So the highly processed foods is everywhere. And toxins as well. Yeah. We can go into those. Right.
Yeah. And when somebody first told me that, I was like, I don't even know what that means. What's a processed food? I was like, is it bread? Clearly it's not fruit. Is it, I eat a lot of fig Newtons. I mean, are those processed? Are those natural? I mean, that's a fruit, right?
It's got fig.
That's right. It's got fig in it. So, Adriana, can you help me out with, maybe there's even a spectrum. I don't know. Like we have processed, we have ultra processed, we have, I don't know. What are your thoughts, and how do we identify that?
Yeah, you're totally right. For everything, there is a spectrum of the best option and the worst option and everything. Like I say, chips, you can buy, Doritos, which is turbo chips. So you can buy one that is only potato and avocado oil and salt, which is less worse. So, and it's keto and not fried. So yeah, there is a spectrum of everything. And it's important to understand that the food industry is as deceiving as the pharma nowadays, unfortunately. So there is no regulation on the package. You can put an all natural, and it's not. You can put a lot of information there. There is no regulation to control that. There is some regulation with the labels, but again, there is a lot of things that they can get away with, put information there that people don't understand. So, this is all natural and I'm going to buy, and it's not.
So you're saying if my cookies are organic, does it mean anything, or what is? Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's hard. Your produce will be more regulated because it's plain forward, being the celery organic, use pesticide or not. But if it's a cookie, there's so many ingredients. Which ingredient is organic? Which one is not? They put natural flavors. Could be anything in this natural flavor. They don't need to say what is in the natural flavor. So I think the rule of thumb is like, as less ingredients, the better. So everything that comes in a package is processed food. Everything that is not a single ingredient. So to me, it's like whole foods is what is made in nature, right? The grains, the beans, fruits, vegetables, those are whole foods, the unprocessed. And everything that comes in a package, right? The cookies and the chips and the pastas and breads are processed. So the less ingredients, the better. Rule number one. If there are ingredients that you don't recognize, neither your body will. Because the food industry uses a lot of technology, so they change molecules of ingredients and it has to call differently. Like, for instance, sugar has dozens of different variations made in the lab. They change one little molecule of the sugar, and they can change. Usually ends with OSE, O's, maltose, dextrose, is all sugar hidden in there. So you said, there's cane sugar and all the ingredients are not. No, if you sum all of them, it's more than anything else, because in the label, it's by percentage. So the first ingredients is the biggest percentage. Let's see, the cookie unbleached flour is the number one, meaning there is more flour than the second ingredient. So the second ingredient is sugar. That's a problem. So you want sugar to be the third ingredient or back there. So it's a less percentage. And you see, oils and whatever is made that. So if you can read and understand, and again, less ingredient, the better. And if it has sugar, if you don't understand the name, so that's kind of where you stay in.
Absolutely. That's super helpful. I've tried to avoid sugar but it's, first of all, it's everywhere and everything, it seems like. But then I'm like, well, I'll limit my sugar to a reasonable level. And then I'm like, I don't really know what that means. I mean, I don't even know how many grams is a lot. I look at a percentage sometime on the package and I go, oh, it's added sugars, 10%. Maybe that's a lot. I don't know. Any guidance on that?
There is not a right amount. There is not enough studies that say this amount of sugar is good for you, because there is the natural sugar that is in the fruits, right? In the dry fruits, there is natural, the fructose, which is good for you. The body likes that. And there's all the other sugar that is processed and made. There is the cane sugar, and then there is other things that made in the lab. Like I said, it has weird names. And it's hard to avoid. So it's more that you can avoid, the better, because it's, like I said, it's in everything, even bread. Yeah. Like I grew up eating bread in Brazil, and then here I start eating bread. And then I realized, well, there was sugar in bread. Bread is supposed to be savory, not sugar. So it, unfortunately, it's hidden because it's addictive. It's like a drug and shoots your dopamine up. So then more sugar that there is, more you're going to crave that particular food. So it's all intended.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, hopefully we can get better at that in the U.S. I know I heard somebody talking the other day, like even a Snickers bar, like in Europe or wherever, has sugar, milk, one other ingredient, whatever. It's not great for you, of course, but in the U.S. it has some foreign stuff that you may not recognize, and so yeah, I get it. But Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just going to say we were traveling overseas, and someone said, "Hey, this is Mexican Coke, not the U.S. Coke." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And they're like, their response was, "Oh, well, in Mexico, the Coca-Cola comes in a glass bottle, and it has sugar in it. There's no high fructose corn syrup, whereas like the Coca-Cola in the U.S. will have high fructose corn syrup." And I was like, "Oh, all right, I guess this is better for." Yeah, it's still sugar.
No, exactly.
but it's less worse. But my takeaway is what I've extracted from Adriana over the years of learning things is it's never there's usually like rarely one smoking gun, like this is the causal factor. There's just a lot of compounding things, kind of like in the financial markets, things compound over time, and it's the amount of all these unhealthy ingredients that are contained in a lot of the processed foods. And it's also, I think, another one of the things I've learned from Adriana is like this idea of toxins, like where do they come from? What are they? Why are they coming into my body? And there's no amount that's a good amount. And what are reasonable steps to try to reduce them, and what are unreasonable steps to try to reduce them? And that's something that we still struggle with today. But I know that's something that's I've learned from her over the years. So
yeah, it's almost like a death by 1,000 cuts, right? You've got to try to eliminate what you can, be smart. But Mark, what do you do while you're on the mic? What do you do on the road? I mean, that's a big challenge I'm not flying anymore, so frankly, it's easier, but what do you do?
It, there's probably, I've seen people do much better jobs than me of doing food prep. I do the bare bones amount of food prep when I go on a trip, but I think whatever it is that you can bring is helpful. Is step one. I think for most pilots, I don't think it's the overnights, and I'm speaking for myself, that are the big problems. I think it's just living in an airport. Like, how do you get by going from terminal to terminal or gate to gate sometimes? Flying your sequence and consume healthy foods. Certain airlines get, have food catered there that are offered. And usually that food is, I try to avoid it, because it's prepackaged, it's highly processed. It's got a ton of salt and sugar and all those bad ingredients. So what do you do when you're inundated with all these things? I just look for the easy relief buttons, maybe some food apps on my phone of like, I know certain airports will have certain healthier food choices. I give myself permission to spend a little bit more money and not criticize the $28 salad that I'm like, hey, I know this is a good salad. It's totally unrealistically expensive, but hey, I'm making a decent amount of money working. Like, don't stand in the McDonald's line. Like, yeah. And I think that's a trap that a lot of pilots can get into, is the food's expensive in the airport, and I don't want to spend the extra money, and maybe I didn't bring enough food to last me this trip, but give yourself permission to buy better food.
Yeah, that's a good point. All the stuff we spend our money on, food is probably one. And unfortunately, the healthy food is more expensive, unfortunately, but fortunately, like you said, you can afford it. Maybe we don't want to sometimes, but
yeah, and maybe it's not every meal, but give yourself the permission to treat yourself to not the dessert, but just the better quality food.
That's right. And if you decide to take a healthy peanut butter and jelly sandwich like I did, and I threw healthy in there because I'm really not sure, but I want to make myself feel better, you put peanut butter on both sides of the bread and jelly in the middle. It'll last for days.
There you go.
Right, Mark?
It's been done before.
Do not put jelly on one side of the bread. You'll regret that. But Adriana, what do you all I know you cook a lot, but maybe there are some folks that they can't cook. They, it's not in their lifestyle. Meal prep things, anything. What are some tips and techniques for people maybe that they're just not going to, have the ability to do a lot of cooking at home? Any thoughts there?
Yes. So I have a lot of clients that they don't like to cook. They don't want to cook. They don't have the time to cook. You need to work, help them with what is realistic for each person, right? So I think food prep is major. Batch cooking is another awesome tool that I get a lot of people doing. Like, you're going to travel for 5 days. The day off you have, rest one day. The next day, just go to the grocery store, buy a lot of stuff, prepare everything. It's going to be painful to spend hours doing that, but then you don't need to worry about. You can, make a lot of legumes, beans, lentils. You can make grains. You can do a lot of veggies, or if you eat meat, try to get a healthy fish or chicken. And you can have individual packages too. You can freeze a lot of stuff. Then when you need it, you just defrost it when you're home. When you go on a road, you can prepare the food before. So buy a bunch of veggies, or the almond butters or peanut butters, and celery stick and nuts, dry fruit. You can make trio mix. There is a lot. You can roasted your nuts to put some flavor on it and make it flavorful things. Otherwise, you get tired of the plain. There are a lot of things that last on the road. Like I said, dry fruit, nuts, trio mix, celery, and some veggies and hummus, things like that. I make a lot for my kid to take to school. It's very easy. It's like a raw protein bars or balls. You can get a nut, a button, either peanut butter or almond butter. You can put dark chocolate in it. You can put dry shredded coconut. You can put dates. You can put walnuts, any nuts, and rolled oats. And then you mix everything and you make little balls or little squares. You have tons of good fat, protein, minerals, a lot of good stuff that is travel well. It's small and doesn't go bad, doesn't have to be in the fridge. And you can just take with you.
Yeah, we love those. We do those, Adriana. I love those little, whatever we call them, protein balls. They're great. Yeah. Another thing that we like to do is we make the green smoothies. And I guess the green just comes from the apple, but we put all kinds of stuff in there, spinach and apples. And so those are easy to get in if you're busy, to drink or whatever. And I'm not sure if we could take those on the road, Mark. Have you ever tried that, to take those smoothies on the road?
I tried to get a little blender and put it in my bag, and it got confiscated by TSA. They said the blade was too sharp. So I was like, all right, I'm not doing this anymore.
You didn't tell them about the axe that you had access to in the cockpit, though, did you?
I've told them, I was like, hey, there's 16 armed people in every first class section they got the serrated blade on the knife, and on American. Funny. I'm like, this is it's funny, but
yeah, it is. But Adriana, what I hear you saying too is that even in the meal prep or the batching of the meals, it comes back to those systems that we have to surround ourselves with systems in our environment so that we are set ourselves up for success. And then our hope is that, we start to feel better, right? And then we're motivated to stick with those habits. Otherwise, we cannot willpower through this thing. And so that's kind of what I hear you saying as well. And I know that works for our family as well. Anything on that?
Correct. Yeah, you're totally right. I think, when you're making changes, I always, advise someone to not try to change everything at once. Again, that gets overwhelmed. You don't want to do anymore. You're tired. You're confused. Just do one thing at a time. I always say baby steps with everything. Even when I went from pescatarian to vegetarian to vegan, it took me a while to transit. It's not like one day, boom, you don't know what to do. You need to go slow. So you add some things slowly. You reduce the consumption of things that are not good. You add things that are good, a little bit more veggies, a little bit more fruit, a little bit more grains or legumes. With time, over time, and then you created a system. Like you said, now I have a system, your family has, but it took a while for us to get to that system. Now I can plan my weeks. If perhaps I didn't plan that week, my week is a mess. If I came from the weekend to Monday, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's crumbled. So planning is important if you can most of the time. So then you have the foods, you know what to do, things are there. When you're hungry, you're like, oh yeah, prepare all of this. So I'm going to eat what I prepare. Otherwise you're like, okay, chips and salsa, whatever is easy. I'm too hungry for cooking right now. So.
Yeah, too hungry to make good decisions.
Yeah. Correct.
Hey, Charlie, I thought of one last one. I think the easy button for being on the road is also protein powder. I mean, I know it is processed, so it's not perfect, but it is a great supplement and it travels well and it's flexible. So that's one that does travel well. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I remember too, my battle was like, I did not want to let myself get hungry because I knew if I got hungry, all bets were off. It was over.
That is a very good call. Yeah, I tell a lot of my clients to not go, for instance, in a birthday party or somewhere if you're hungry, or even to the grocery store. Mm-hmm. You're going to buy a lot of things you don't need because you're just craving, That's a very good call.
Absolutely, yeah.
Speaking of hunger, drinking enough water, I know depending on how long the legs you're flying too, I know some people don't like to drink a lot of water because they don't want to, crack the door open and do the whole, rotation. But if you're intentionally dehydrating yourself, that's going to make you really hungry too. If you're dehydrated, just the signals in our brains, drinking enough water is key to, being satiated too. So
yeah, I didn't think about the relationship between the dehydration and hunger. That's a great point.
Yeah. And if you eat more, nutrient dense food with high fiber, you're going to be satiated for longer. If you go eat a burger, you might feel really full in the beginning, but then you're going to feel hungry soon. If you eat some veggies, things that are more whole grain that your body takes longer and fill your stomach longer, like you don't spike your insulin, so you're going to feel satiated for longer too. And there are a lot less calories than the foods that is going to, feel satiated right there, but then get processed super quickly, and then you're hungry again in a couple hours later.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And a couple of the just topics that are a little bit kind of maybe one-offs, if you will, but on the road, we tend to, with our dinner or whatever, have a beer or two or a bourbon or wine. It seems like there's been people say, hey, a couple glasses of wine every night. Good for you, help you. I don't know. Adriana, what do you think about alcohol in general?
Unfortunately, I wish the science was different. I love wine, but alcohol, it's not good for you. Like toxins, it's a poison to your body. However, if you eat healthy, your body can handle that poison and process not be so detrimental. But if you eat processed food,
I like how you sugarcoated the poison. Yeah. So basically you're saying, you don't have to be overly crazy about it, but nonetheless, there's no real science that says, hey, a couple glasses of bourbon every night might do you good, right? I mean, that's just kind of.
There is an exception. If you look, we're going to go into that topic later. I want to talk more details about the longevity study, Blue Zone. If you go to Europe, a lot of them drink wine they're not like alcohol absent, and they're the healthiest people in the world. How do they do it? Because there is a lot of other factors involved, like we mentioned in the beginning, right? A lot of healthy lifestyle that they live, that their body can handle the wine that they drink at night. So, unfortunately in the U.S., the standard American diet and our habits are not as healthy to be able to handle the amount of alcohol that is socially accepted that we want. So, have your glass, but don't have the whole bottle. And don't, try to justify every day, because we can find reasons every day. But just leave it as special, for weekends or things like that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love that. What you just brought up, if we can jump into that, if you'd like, where, we want to eat for, like we talked about, longevity, quality of life. I mean, energy, a lot of times people don't feel energetic. I think my guess is that food has a big impact on that. But can you cover that, Adriana? Speaking of that, go ahead,
Charlie,
Mark.
have you heard of the Blue Zone longevity studies, or are you familiar with those?
I've heard of it. And I know there's a Netflix special, and Mediterranean, and maybe some parts of Asia is really about the extent of my knowledge there. So
correct. Yeah, there was one of the longest studies in lifestyle that was done. There were certain regions of the world that the people live the longer. But like we mentioned before, it's not about age, it's about the quality of life. They're 100 years old, they're still playing and still walking and just having a normal life. So they want to know what the secret. So there is Okinawa in Japan, Sardine in Italy, actually in California, the Advent community, they eat pretty healthy. So, there are a few pockets all over the world that the people live longer and very healthy. So again, it's not just the food, but the majority of people healthy in that community are mostly plant-based. So they eat some animal products and dairy, but it's not the majority of the food. They eat sometimes, once in a while. It's very limited. They mostly eat whole grains, legumes, which include beans, lentils, and lots of fruits and vegetables. And of course, the quality of the vegetables is better than here. They walk everywhere, a lot of physical activity, not going to the gym, but everything is walkable. They take their nap, they don't overwork. They don't have a lot of stress. They have a life purpose. They're very social. So family is very important. They're always connected they have a sense of community. Clean water. So there is a lot of different elements there that we can learn from it that makes them a lot healthier than the majority of the rest of the world.
That's amazing. All the things you just listed there, in addition to eating right, or the way they eat, I should say, because you talked about community, you talked about purpose, just being more active in general, not necessarily going to the gym.
Because you're breathing air, they're outside a lot. So they're getting the sun, the vitamin D, the calcium they need. So the whole lifestyle is, creating the well-being. And one important thing too that I read in a study is the amount of food, the portion size, which in the majority of the world, the plates are smaller, everything is smaller, right? And that's what is healthy, to eat smaller portions throughout the day. And in America, it's super size me, everything is massive, the package, the plates, the portions. And more that you eat, you kind of extend your stomach, it's elastic, and more that you fit there. Yeah. So it's not a healthy, way. More is not better when it comes to food.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, a lot of us, I know I was raised like, clean your plate. Clean your plate. And so it's really hard for me not to finish everything on my plate. And so it's interesting. I think I don't know if it was in Japan or one of the Asian countries where they don't even have a word for overeating. It's like, it's not even a concept. But again, just different culture, different ideas. And again, just the way I was raised, I got to push away, and it's hard to do. What do you think, Mark?
No, I was remembering. I think that was maybe from some of the Blue Zone that there was a word in Japanese that described like 80% satiated, like eat until you're 80% full and then stop, because, there's a delay in the signals from our stomachs to our head. And, that's the appropriate amount of what you really need is, an attempt to not overeat. Anyways, that, as you were talking, that sparked that memory. So
yeah, and I eat really fast too. I'm like the poster child of what not to do. It sounds like, but I eat really fast. I don't know why, just a habit. And next thing you know, I stand up. I'm like, oh man, I ate way more than I thought, but it's a delayed reaction. So
I suffered the same problem. Something that I'm reminded of regularly. I think it goes back to like basic training in the military. It's like you had to, you didn't have time. So, and I still have time, but it's a tough habit to break. And I have to be mindful when I'm eating to slow down, enjoy it. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that might actually help like the body start to break down the food by being more intentional with how we're eating. And
it's when you're chewing, you're producing the enzymes. The enzymes that breaks down food and help the food be absorbed, they're all released and created when you're chewing. They say to chew 30 times for each bite, which most people don't do it. So that's why a lot of people have digest problems. Well, we're not having all the enzymes to break down our food because we're eating too fast. And not only that, so the body needs to work 10 times harder to try to break down without the enzymes. And the communication, like Mark mentioned before, between your stomach to your brain to let you know you're satiated, it takes 30 minutes sometimes, 20 to 30. So most people eat in 10 minutes and you overeat because you don't know if you're full or not.
Yeah. Mark, can you imagine how hard it would be to stuff down that Chipotle burrito and 30 chews a bite? It's just impossible in between turns.
We're about to push in 10 minutes. Can you finish that burrito?
Well, you better get down to one bite or one chew per bite. Oh man. Yeah, that makes it challenging for sure. But I do. And I think you nailed it, Mark. I remember being in basic training or officer training or whatever, where I was walking away from the table still chewing, and still eating, because they're like, get up, go. And then the airlines doesn't help it because you're trying to, get some lunch on a 20, 25, 30 minute turn or whatever. So,
exactly. Yeah. Just it's good stuff. It's good reminders just for us to be aware of, right? Because then we can actually maybe shift a little bit of our behaviors and actions.
That's right. Yeah, that's for sure. It's like you said earlier, Adriana, just to the conscious level, from the subconscious level to the conscious level is the first, most important step, it seems like. So
correct. If there's anything anyone can remember is like stay away from processed food and be aware of your actions and your thoughts. And that's the first step. That's awesome. So as we finish up today, are there things that you're thinking about, we didn't talk about maybe, or I didn't ask you about that it could be helpful, or anything else on your mind as far as just what we haven't covered today? I think, there are so many diets out there. I think nutrition is a very controversial topic nowadays, right? If someone goes online, you can find anything you can possibly imagine, right? Totally opposite approaches that they say that they swear by, that is the healthiest one, so many fad diets. And I think that is going back to the basics, right? Learn from these people who are living healthier than us in other parts of the world. And that, eating more vegetables and fruits and whole grains and legumes can never hurt anyone. So if there's anything we can do, again, not going from an extreme to the other, but if you can decrease a little bit, the processed food and a little bit the animal also foods. I'm not saying to cut completely, but we ate way too much animal products in the U.S. In which, the quality of these products nowadays is very bad. It's not like it used to be 100 years ago that we know the farmer, we know how the animals are raised. Now it's, everything highly processed, everything. It's about making more money, selling more, and it's a mass produce of that type of food that's harmful for us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's that, like you said, that awareness and just understanding. But Adriana, thank you so much for your time today. I mean, I've learned a ton, and it's exciting to talk about because It is like finances, Mark. Like you said, it's not just about the money. When you peel that onion layer back a few times, you realize that there's a lot more there going on that contribute to our habits, good and bad. And so just that awareness, building the systems and structure around us to be successful. And then we start to notice the difference. We start to feel better. And our hope is that, again, as in the wealth management business, as we help people with their finances, they can go on and to have a great retirement. I think of my own mom and dad where, hey, they're retired now. And I'm like, hey, you've made it, you've retired, you did great. Now let's get and stay healthy so you can have a great retirement. That's something that's been hit close to home to me as my own parents get into that life phase as well. So thanks for everything today. Adriana, last question for you. I'm going to surprise you a little bit here. What, after all your life coaching and nutritionist, your background, you've gotten to work with lots of people. What is your definition now of your life success?
That's a good question. Mm-hmm. I think being able to overcome my own beliefs, being able to change my own habits, being aware of things that I wasn't aware. I think that led me to, have a healthy lifestyle. And, one thing that I learned a lot from my mom is exactly what I said in the beginning. She always prioritized health over anything else. Even we didn't have money for anything else, she would always make fresh food and buy the best thing. So to me, that is a value that I carry with me that, like you said, without health, we have nothing.
Yeah.
And health is a lot more just what we eat, like I said in the beginning, but also to try to find health in every area of our life. I think finding the balance. And I think we're able to create a lot of healthy habits in our life as a family that I see, I'm seeing in my daughter, the things that she learned and she's repeating and seeing that, she has that conscience in her, the value also.
Yeah, I love it. And that's awesome. And, what I hear you saying is like, I love the way you said, able to change my own mind or grow. What I hear you saying is growing and understanding more about your own, desires, backgrounds to be healthy. And somebody said it best one time too. They said, health is wealth, and they're not two separate items that can exist apart, So awesome. Adriana, thank you so much. Mark, any parting shots?
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. Mark, what do you think? Anything?
It's good seeing you again, Charlie. Appreciate you having us on. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Hello, Pilot Podcast family. Charlie here. I just wanted to share with you something we've just recently developed. In the show notes, you're going to see the Pilot Wealth Index. We want you to check it out. Give it a shot. It's a quiz, a short questionnaire that allows you to understand, are you on track? We have a lot of people that say, hey, we just want to know if we're on track. Are we where we should be at this stage of our flying career, airline career, whatever it might be? How am I doing? Am I close to my peer group? Am I behind? Am I ahead? We've developed some questions, some metrics that we think if you go through this and check it out, answer the questions, you will have a very good idea of where you stand. We developed the questions that give an indication of, are you doing the right things you need to do to be prepared for an eventual retirement, and that one that can be profitable for you. So check it out in the show notes, the Leading Edge Pilot Wealth Index. We hope you give it a shot. If you have any questions at all, reach out. Happy to help. Charlie at leadingedgeplanning.com. Again, that's Charlie at leadingedgeplanning.com. You can call or text me on my cell, 865-328-4969. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Pilot Money Guys podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you listen. We are grateful for your reviews because they encourage others to listen in. Visit leadingedgeplanning.com to learn more and subscribe to our newsletter. Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC, LEFP, is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where LEFP and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from those projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for, decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.